And now, part 2 of our 4-part special with Palestinian American, human rights major, and former Miss Arab USA, Suzanne Aslam, discussing the Palestinian perspective on the Israel-Hamas war and the Free Palestine movement. This is the Black Information Network Daily Podcast, and I am your host, Ramses Ja. For those who are just joining us on today's episode, Suzanne Aslam is here with us. She is a human rights major, a former Miss Arab USA, an actress, as well as an activist turned writer. As an activist and Palestinian American, she spent time in Palestine working with a peacekeeping team. And of course, she has a deep personal understanding of the occupation. Please follow her social media at The Activist. So we were just about to discuss the world.
The whole world.
Recently, the narrative has shifted. The support has shifted.
It has.
In favor of Palestine.
In favor of the truth.
In favor of the
truth. If I might say.
Sure. These videos and these TikTokers, and these social media activists have, after some time, been able to make as much noise as mainstream media channels. And it has forced the hand of, the media outlets, and really has forced the narrative more toward the truth. Right? Rarely do we encounter things that paint Israel in a good light. Most often we encounter things that paint Israel in a very, very, very bad light. I recall in this moment seeing a video of some people going to get food because I have the data here, but I believe it's like 4 out of 5 hungry people on earth right now are in
Gaza.
In Gaza, yes. So they need food. We've seen the starving babies with the eyes sunken in their heads. The mothers can't breastfeed because they're starving too. We've seen the bombs. We've seen the body parts come out of buildings. We've seen all of that for months. Unfortunately, it's really it should take 0, but really it should only take 1 and be like, oh, that's too much. We've seen tens of thousands of these examples. But the video that comes to mind, these starving people approaching a bread truck. It was on CNN. I remember seeing the video. It was a black and white video. It looked like drone footage. People approaching a truck to where they can get food, starving people. Funny story. I remember when I learned about the Holocaust, how they used to starve Jewish people, and then they would throw bread in and make them fight over the bread.
Jesus, it's horrible.
The Nazis would do that to the Jewish people and make them fight because they were so hungry, right? So these people on Palestine on the ground, in this black and white video I'm seeing CNN, they approach there's like a few, like maybe trucks or pallets or whatever.
Trucks.
To get food, and then they started shooting them when they were getting the food, and then however many, it was 100-something people died. They did stop breathing that day. Like, it's not like they were hurt, and that's a number.
700 were hurt, or 500 were hurt, something like
there
that.
You go. Thank you for that.
But 100 were completely
lost
murdered.
Their life. Going to get food because they were hungry.
Bread for their babies. So,
back to this narrative. Let me share a bit just to give you a little bit more. Okay. There was a UN vote in December. Speaking of the UN, 153 countries in the body's General Assembly, the overwhelming majority voted in favor of an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. Right. And that's an uptick from October, which 121 countries, backed the humanitarian truce. In other words, initially most countries did. And in December, even more countries. So that's the UN. We mentioned the UN.
I just want to note that the United States voted no.
Oh yeah. The United States. And there was one other.
This needs to be, I think the UK once voted no and once abstained.
Yep. And then I think there was something with one other country, and that's it. The rest of the world.
The whole world.
Was like, yo, this is wild, right? And then you got to think, okay, what sort of political agenda might be in place. So if you want to speak to that, please. If not right now, I can make the rest of these points in terms of how the global support is shifting.
All right, keep talking. I'll take notes.
Okay. So another example of the global support shifting has to do with people on the ground. Once upon a time, there was, people were very much Israel should be able to defend itself,
Sure.
right? Most people, and then now there are people who still feel that way,
right?
But more people are like, Israel has gone too far and needs to stop.
Right.
We cannot bring these people back to life. So the next best thing is to stop.
Right.
And people on the ground, I would imagine, are tired of the excuses, the justifications, I believe you used the word gaslighting. It's not a word I'm super familiar with, but I feel like it might fit here. So gaslighting and inaccuracies, and people are tired of perhaps Israel's failure to acknowledge the truth of the matter, because I know that there's been some question about whether or not the death tolls are reliable, the numbers are reliable. There's been some question, so people, their opinions have shifted away from that. And then my last point I'll make is that Biden said this in his State of the Union address. No. I'm not sure it was the State of the Union address, but we will talk about Biden's State of the Union address. But Biden is on record stating that Israel is, quote, starting to lose that support, unquote, from global allies due to, quote, indiscriminate bombing that takes place, unquote. So that's a direct quote from the president of the United States.
Even though Ami says that there's no indiscriminate bombing happening. But we want to believe what we want to believe. Because if the truth goes against what we believe, how do you reconcile your reality?
Yeah, it must be a lie. So let's figure out a way to justify it version rather than acknowledge.
So South Africa takes Israel to the International Court of Justice in January. Okay. Because, and God, I just want to hug all the South Africans, because this was, did you follow that?
Yeah. Well, not intimately, but I followed.
Beautiful. It was so beautiful. It was the most just well documented thing that I have ever seen. They were the best lawyers. So they go to court, which, by the way, it was 2 days. The first day, South Africa does its thing. They present all of this evidence to say, hey, we're concluding that this is genocide, and the UN needs to, or the ICJ needs to step in and say something and just say this is genocide. This is very important. We created a world court for this reason, because there was a genocide before, and we need to, not do this again. So they do it. Western media does not air South Africa's stance. The following day, Israel is allowed to rebuttal. They aired that. I just think that that's really interesting. Number one. Number two, everybody was talking about the reason that everybody is okay, aside from the hostages that have been taken by Hamas into the Gaza Strip. The reason that people are okay is that they said, well, Hamas killed all these babies and they abused all these women. So go in and you do what you got to do. Israel did not bring that up in the International Court of Justice. That would have been a great one had it been true.
Right.
But they didn't bring it up
because it wasn't true.
Because there's no evidence. There's no evidence. However, it's such a great point, because it really pulls at your heartstrings to hear that
babies are.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even say it because it's horrible. But it would have been a great point had it been true, and they couldn't use it in a court of law. But they're using it in the court of opinion, of public opinion. So that I just think is really, really telling of one way of them losing the narrative. The second thing that I think is really interesting is that they, for example, you said the TikTokers, they're trying to ban TikTok because they're losing. The people's voices matter. And sometimes I get really hopeless because I'm like, look, we're yelling and screaming and nothing's coming of it. But if they didn't care about our voices, they wouldn't be this scared, and they wouldn't try to take a Chinese platform that is showing the whole world what is really going on in Palestine. That means that the average person's opinion in some way, shape, or form that I can't fully see actually matters. And that's so beautiful. Israel will do, as we're speaking, they're doing horrific things in Gaza and in the West Bank. But they do it more like during the Super Bowl. There was a huge massacre during the Super Bowl, at Christmas, Thanksgiving, Black Friday. They do things when we're distracted. which means that our eyes and our focus actually matters. And they're terrified that they are losing. Last week, Chuck Schumer, who is a Democrat, very liberal, but very, very pro-Israel, stood in front of, and he said he would stand with Netanyahu to the end of days. This is always. He publicly said in front of a microphone, Israel is losing support. Netanyahu needs to step down, and they need to put somebody else in their place, because he's so terrified that Israel is actually losing support on the world stage.
I think that there's another part to this too that deserves to be mentioned. We were talking about TikTokers. Sure, there's a heightened sense of fear that works well when people have a political agenda.
Sure.
Elected officials or whatever. And China, I believe you're the one that said this to me, China makes for a great
enemy.
Boogeyman,
yeah.
Boogeyman enemy. Yeah. But that was always kind of the thing, when TikTok came out, it was a Chinese
spyware.
Right. Yeah. And that's been true for years.
That might actually be true. Yeah, right. I don't know.
But here's the point I'm making.
But Meta is also spyware.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, when TikTok first came out, it was known that that's what it was. I remember that. I remember when I had to register for it, I'm like, well,
here we go.
Yeah, like I need to know what I'm putting up here. Because I used to, the only thing, it was during COVID when I logged on to make videos because we were at home all day. Me and my sons, we were making TikTok videos of what we were doing, dancing videos and whatever, like everyone else. But I was well aware that that was a Chinese company and that they could be using it because that narrative already existed. And then through the rest of the Trump presidency and, 3 years of the Biden presidency or whatever, TikTok has been TikTok. And it's not until a couple of months into this war where they're doing something about it.
Yes.
Right? And that's the part that feels coincidental. And I'd also like to add here that the Anti-Defamation League, which, we, as a rule, we on this or not we on the show, but me personally, I'll say, and then me on Civic Cypher, that version of Ramses, I try my best to be as supportive of the ADL's agendas as I can be. They're not always right. No one's always right, but I do my best to honor the spirit in which they move to protect the interest of Jewish people and people who are potentially subjugated and defamed and all these sorts of things. But the head of the ADL, was on record saying something like, I don't remember, so this is not a direct quote, but effectually what was communicated was, we are losing the narrative to young people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so again, the timing and the optics to me suggests
100%
that this war that Israel has launched, the narrative has gotten away from them.
Yeah, they got cocky.
Via TikTok and young people sharing the content.
Yeah. Because
older people are not getting those same images because they're more likely to get their news from
mainstream media. Yeah.
Right.
So just for people who don't know, the ban that our government is trying to impose upon TikTok isn't just, hey, we're going to ban you, because they could have done that already if they really wanted to ban it. That could have happened. Why are we talking about this? You don't have to negotiate with a Chinese company. You just ban them. They're saying ban, sell it, or we'll ban you. Yeah. Who are they selling it to? Right. Let's talk about that.
And who's putting together the investment?
The head of the Treasury is the one putting together or trying to put together the investment.
There you go.
And he's in cahoots with people within the Israeli government. So we're buying it from China and selling it to another foreign country, except it never feels like it's a foreign country because this really does feel like the United States of Israel. Netanyahu has I wish you could play this video, but it's in Hebrew and so it's subtitled. But he made a video mocking the American consumer who wants to boycott the state of Israel, saying that we won't allow this. They have put laws in like 21 states.
In Arizona, where I live, there.
Arizona here has laws saying if you work in the public sector, you have to sign a contract saying that you will not boycott the state of Israel. And there's no contract about boycotting France or Bangladesh or Nairobi or Canada, just Israel. They are so deep in all of our policies that we as Americans, if you don't care about the little brown babies in Gaza, you as Americans should be concerned because they are ripping us of our freedom of speech, whether it's through TikTok, whether it's through the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement that they are trying to get rid of. We were inspired by South Africa to start BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. South Africa was able to achieve the end of apartheid because people all over the world stood up. Campuses across America said, "Hey, if you're investing in these companies that are profiting off of apartheid in South Africa, we're not going to stand for it." And so we saw that happen successfully, and we said, "Great, we're going to follow this nonviolent movement." And in response, they are changing the laws. Israel is changing the laws in the United States of America. That is dangerous, and we should be really terrified.
So here's another thing that I want to say, and that's that a lot of times when people have these conversations about, oh, there's language in documents that says that you can't boycott Israel, blah, blah, blah. It sounds very like conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Right? It sounds like, that sounds a little like a stretch.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, it is 100% true. And it is deeply unnerving to be able to see that. And so I wanted to make sure that was stated. Now, I appreciate, us being able to talk a bit about, what it feels like to kind of round that corner and kind of know that the truth has come to light, that public opinion has shifted, that to a degree, some political opinion has shifted. The narrative has shifted away from just blindly pro-Israel to now it's like, listen, it might be too little, it might be too late, but it's not nothing. And so it's important for us to talk about it and just kind of get a sense of what that's like. And so I appreciate you taking the time to share that with us, but I do want to spend some time to talk about Biden's State of the Union address, as I mentioned. So during his State of the Union address, he mentioned that, I'm going to quote him. Quote, "To the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip." He goes on to say, "Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority." And then finally, he says, "The only real solution is a two-state solution." And that is something that, again, it may not be everything, might be too little, might be too late, but it's undeniable that it's not nothing, right? So when that happened, did you feel...
No.
Okay, so talk to us. That's what we're...
No, because he's funding it. So remember earlier before the show, we were just talking about something else, and we said something about talking out of both sides of your mouth. That's what Biden's doing. He's talking out of both sides of his mouth. Okay. How does he fund all of the military aid to Israel that they ask for and send F-16s and all sorts of fighter jets and bombs and missiles? And I don't even know what else that they give them, but it's like $10 million a day worth of military funding. How do they do that? Create the genocide that is causing the mass starvation. Oh, and not just starvation, but the babies that are burning and crying and their skin is melting. By the way, they've used white phosphorus, which is illegal under international law, but we'll put that to the side. How does Biden do all of that gladly, like he cannot wait to sign this check? And then goes, oh, guys, but we have to give the Palestinians that I'm murdering aid. Hurry. How does that work? I don't care that he sits in front of the State of the Union in order to get votes because an election is coming up and says that. I don't care that Kamala Harris gave a speech where she goes, goes on and on about how like, oh, it's so horrible in Gaza and Palestinians are dying and it's just really sad. And that's why we need a ceasefire. And she stops and the audience claps. And then she goes, for at least the next 6 weeks. And we're like, what? Why? Why can't we have a permanent ceasefire? A non-permanent ceasefire, all that means is that you're giving them a break to put a few Band-Aids on them before you then kill them. Yeah.
Kick the can down the road.
It's horrible. You're just extending their death. It's in a way that's so grotesque and so painful. They look up at the sky now and they don't know if they're getting aid being dropped to them, because now they're airdropping aid, which I'll talk about in a second, or if they're getting bombs. No child should have to look up in the sky and wonder,
this is my last moment.
Is this my last moment? And is this aid, or is this a bomb that's going to kill me and my family? So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth for sure. And it's embarrassing. And I'm embarrassed to be here because of it, in America, not on your show. So Israel has decided that they won't let enough aid in. So they're purposely starving the Palestinians. And there are trucks ready in Egypt trying to get in, and for some reason they can't get in, and Israel's not letting it happen. So Biden's solution, or whoever advised him, was to build a pier. And we talked about this at the end of Civic Cypher, and we didn't get a chance to, which I think is what propelled this conversation. Biden wants to build a pier off the coast of the Gaza Strip in the Mediterranean Sea. So they've started, and they are bringing trucks in. They're bringing demolition trucks in and whatever other construction trucks are needed. And they're scooping up the rubble from the bombed buildings that people are still under. So they're scooping up that rubble. We honestly don't know what else they're scooping up, because so many people have been lost and have never been found under the rubble. And they're taking it to the sea, and they're building a pier. Now, first of all, it's really weird that construction trucks can go in and out, but the aid trucks can't. And then yet you say you want to build a pier to then provide aid by sea. Just let the aid trucks in if clearly trucks can come in and out. This is a strategic move on the United States' part to have a stake in that part of the world. Joe Biden said as a young man, if Israel did not exist, the United States would have to invent one. Those are his words. And now they found it. They're building this pier. They're sending in 1,000 American troops. We made our way into the Middle East the way we wanted to, on our terms. This isn't about aid, because if it was really about aid, number one, we would stop funding the genocide. And number two, if construction trucks can come in, like I said, aid trucks can come in too. So this is all smoke and mirrors, acting like you want to build a pier for aid, when really this is just your leg in. There's gas, there's oil. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to take in.
It's a lot. I know. I'm sorry.
No. Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. It's just, we learn these things. Sometimes we know, and sometimes we learn on the fly. I can only imagine what it's like to be you.
I'm angry, heartbroken.
Yeah. Because I don't know all of these things. I know, in terms of being Black, I got that one down.
Sure. Right? The sentiment is familiar.
Yeah.
Right?
But when you get these bits of information, and you're like, oh my God. Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Right.
It's just kind of like,
we've learned to be very
skeptical. Heart even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've learned to be very skeptical. If the U.S. does anything that looks remotely
that I'm familiar with,
right? Yeah. We're like, what's the catch, or what are you really angling after? So today, if I may, so there have been multiple UN resolutions that have failed in terms of getting a ceasefire in the last 6 months. The United States has been the reason that they have failed, because we have the United States, the UN Security Council, and the UN Security Council, everybody has to agree. So like the 5 permanent states on the Security Council, there's 5 permanent states, the US being one of them. Everybody has to agree, which is crazy because also Russia and China and the UK and France are on it. And so since when do the US, Russia, and China are all going to raise their hands and say, yes, we agree. So there have been multiple resolutions that have been put forth where it says, yes, release the Israeli hostages. Yes, provide unlimited aid. And the United States has said no every time. On a side note to my Black Information Network people, it's always a Black person that's at the UN that's raising their hand.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah. So if you want to talk about conspiracy theories a little bit, we actually think that that's done on purpose.
Oh, yeah. I clocked that early. And I'm like, why is she there?
Yeah. Thomas Greenfield. I can't remember her first name. Linda, I think. Linda Thomas Greenfield. She's the one that today a resolution was passed. So last week, I think the U.S. tried to put forth a resolution, but it was bull, and the Palestinians said no. And Russia and China are the ones that actually vetoed it because it was not at all fair to Palestinians. So today, a resolution was passed.
As of this recording.
And the reason it was passed is because the U.S., through Linda Greenfield, abstained from the vote. Okay. However, they still wanted to take credit. So she says, the U.S. ambassador and permanent representative, Linda Thomas Greenfield, said that in adopting the resolution, the Security Council, quote, spoke out in support of the ongoing diplomatic efforts led by the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt. I firmly disagree with the fact that they were moving forward with negotiations to bring about the immediate and sustainable ceasefire, secure the immediate release of all hostages, and help alleviate the tremendous suffering of Palestinian civilians in need in Gaza. She said, the United States fully supports these critical objectives, yet we abstained from it, which I think is very interesting. And then we wanted to take credit as Americans. In fact, they were the foundation of the resolution we put forward last week, a resolution that Russia and China vetoed. We need to make them the bad guys. So we put forth a really crappy resolution. It was vetoed. And now they're like, oh, but see, we put a resolution for it, then they vetoed it. Yeah, but other resolutions were put forth 3 or 4 times before this, and the United States vetoed it. But we don't want to talk about that. We just want to talk about when it looks good for us. And what's really crappy about it is that the resolution is not a permanent ceasefire. They're saying, hey, through the end of Ramadan, which is a month-long celebration, it's like Christmas for Muslims, can we put that we have 2 weeks left of Ramadan, 2 weeks. So by the time this goes into place, what do we have, 1 week? And then we have to assume Israel's actually going to abide by it. There's no actual laws to enforce. You can't make them. They have to be willing to abide by international law. They have not abided by international law for 75 years. So these resolutions, it's highly symbolic. And it's this weird political game that we all have to play to say, oh, look who vetoed and look who abstained. And look, I brought forth something and you rejected it, which now you're the bad guy, even though what I brought forth was totally unacceptable. And then who's dying? Who's suffering on the ground?
This concludes part 2 of our 4-part special with Palestinian American, human rights major, and former Miss Arab USA, Suzanne Aslam. Check back in with us tomorrow for part 3, right here on the Black Information Network Daily Podcast with me, your host, Ramses Jah.